Father, we pray especially tonight for the family of Emily Tucker, one of our students who passed away after long illness. Be with them during this time of grief and comfort them as only you can do. Thank you, dear Lord, for all your many blessings. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item on our agenda is going to be the open forum. We have any individuals signed up to speak tonight? Okay, all right. So moving on to reports. Under reports be comparison of election systems. I believe there's going to be Christine Badillo. Yes, ma'am. Step forward there, please.
Hi guys, it's great to see y'all tonight. I'm here just to give you a short overview of your options in potentially considering how you might want to change your election system. I understand that you guys have maybe discussed this and given it some thought. So I've just got a couple of slides on basically what are the different options, and then we'll compare them more directly between pure at-large voting, which is what you currently have, and at-large with numbered places, which I understand you might be considering making a change to do. So pure at-large is what you have. You don't have numbers. It's just y'all have annual elections in May, and every May it's 2 is up or 3 is up, and that's how it works. So everybody in Waxahachie ISD gets to vote in every election, and they vote for 2 or they vote for 3, and so you're going to have an election most times unless only 2 incumbents. If you've got, for example, 2 spaces up, 2 incumbents sign up, or just 2 folks sign up, then you don't have to have an election. But if anybody signs up, then everybody has to run because everybody's got a built-in opponent. So that's pure at large. With numbered places, it's just a little simpler. It's easier to keep track of. Everybody has an assigned number. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just that's your number. So when it's time to run for re-election, if you're place 1, you sign up in place 1. If somebody wants to run against you, they sign up to run in place 1. If your fellow trustee in place 2 is also up for re-election and they don't draw an opponent, they get to not have to run. So, and that's really kind of, I think, what we would get down to the beauty of having numbered places versus not is you don't all have to run against each other. You have your numbered place and you run in that place. And if you draw an opponent, you draw an opponent. And if you don't, you don't. So it's beneficial in that way. So we'll go to the next slide. And just for clarity purposes, I know this is not something y'all are considering, but single member districts, you're also numbered, but those represent geographical territory. And so the main difference there is that your constituents only vote in the geographical territory they live in. And as a candidate, you would only be able to run in the place or the single member district in which you live. So that's the big difference. And some districts have it very often as a result of Voting Rights Act litigation, but y'all don't, and you don't need to go to it. I just wanted to offer that by way of clarification for anybody who might have concerns about whether that was being considered. Okay, so now we can look at the compare and contrast. And I'm sorry, I know I printed out the slides in this teeny tiny font, but you have a bigger one there. So it's just to compare and contrast how it would work. If you stay with pure at large, which is your current system, you don't have to take any action. And that means there aren't any deadlines or any timelines associated with that you'd have to worry about. You will have the option, you always have the option to consider making a change in the future. And obviously there's no numbering. Again, like I said, the big difference really is if you only have, for example, 2 or 3 people signed up in pure at large, you can cancel. But if anybody has an opponent, then everybody does. And you guys as trustees have to, you're running against each other just as much as anybody else. So there is that. So if you switch to numbered places, You will get numbers based on the order that you're currently your terms expire. So I know you've got like 2 up in 2020. So those will be 1 and 2. And I think 3 the next cycle. So that'd be 3, 4, and 5, and then 6 and 7. So that's just kind of how it goes. And y'all can duke it out between who gets to be 1 and 2. That might be the hardest choice. If you were going to do it, it just requires board action to pass a resolution to say, here's what we're going to do and why. If you switch to numbered places, you can't undo it, and neither can a subsequent board come behind you and undo it. So it's a one-way move. Your timeline for doing it is probably the thing you need to think most about. You have to, by statute, this all comes from 11.058 of the Ed Code, and you have to get it done 60 days before any election that you want to apply this change. So for 2020, that's March 3rd. The thing to also think about, though, is that you're ordering a May election usually in February, and the time period for people to sign up to run begins in January, and you actually have to notice that back in December. So I think you'd really want to have made this move, if you're going to, by the end of this year, so that when you post for that candidate filing period, you can tell people clearly what's up. And then in January, when they start applying, they'll have to know what they want to run for. So those are other considerations to keep in mind as well. Again, the numbering, it makes it a little simpler to know what terms are where, but that's, that shouldn't be a decision maker. But again, when you have numbered places, if you're in place 3 and nobody signs up to run against you in place 3, you don't have to run. And the way that works on election day, if assuming, let's say, 3, 4, and 5 are on the ballot, if 3 and 4 don't have opponents and only 5 does, then on the ballot it says such and such person elected to office, unopposed, elected to office. Place 4, such and such a person, unopposed, elected to office, and place 5 would be your contested race. So there really is some benefit to everybody in the option of not having to run if you don't have to. So. Yeah, I think the biggest likelihood of cost savings is just there's a greater likelihood of being able to cancel an election. So, to the extent that y'all run opposed from time to time, if you have to have an election, it's going to be the same, whether you are at large or not. It's just the ability to be able to cancel it a little bit easier. Or it's really the cost savings is on you guys or potential candidates who want to run, because there's a greater likelihood of running unopposed in a numbered places situation.
I saw where some districts have like a hybrid system where they do 2 seats at large and the rest are place. What's the advantage of that, or why would you do that?
Mm-hmm. That's usually with single member districts.
Okay.
So if you were to have single member districts, you can do it to where you'd have like 4 be single member districts and 3 at large, or you can do 5-2, 6-1, so on, or 7-0. But that's when you'd have numbers, and even then they're also numbered. It's just maybe only 4 or 5 or 6 of them are single member districts.
Mr. Avenstein had given us some data on some school districts in Region 10, and the overwhelming majority of our size have places.
Yeah.
I know you have a little bit more interaction with districts outside of Region 10. Is that the typical around the state?
Yeah, I would say most districts have numbered places. And when I would see pure at large, it tends to be smaller districts. But I think even those are moving away from it just because there are just some obvious benefits to having numbered places. But to the extent that I see it, I usually see it in little bitty ones.
And I've had some conversations with some individuals that were concerned that we would possibly go to single member districts. And I've done some reading. They could do that by petition anyway. We don't have to go to places to go to individual districts. We can go
That's
from
right.
at large to those just by petition only, correct?
That's right. And my understanding was that's what you're considering is just numbered places.
Correct.
So but you're right. And there are statutory requirements associated with it, but by petition, people could petition to basically have a referendum to go to single member districts. The board could choose to go to single member districts, but I wouldn't advise it if you don't have to. Most of the school districts that have it as a result of litigation, like they've tried to settle Voting Rights Act claims that way. And it doesn't always have the intended result. And it is It is more expensive because you guys are going to have the census coming up. Everybody has a census coming up in 2020. And after every census, they have to go back and redraw those lines. So there is a cost there too. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the at-large system, we have, I guess, a fallacy of the undervote. Does a place and position, does it eliminate that?
Yeah, I think it might make it a little more straightforward for your voters. Is just because each, it would be place 1, and then here are your candidates, and place 2, and here are your candidates. So it would be very clear, you're voting for one in each. So I think it could remedy that to some degree, yeah.
This is not a trick question either. Have you represented any districts that went from at-large to places that wish that they didn't?
No. I represent a district that went from at-large to numbered places, and the primary board member who was driving it got beat in the next election. So maybe that one individual did, but I don't think overall it was a bad thing, and I don't think they regret it.
You think is that one that you think the person got beat, or were there other issues?
Oh, there were other issues for sure, and it was in the 2018. There was, high voter turnout with the Senate race and all, so, just complicating factors, but that's just an upshot of it, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good meeting, thank you.
Hold on, Mr. Collin. So since we changed our format a little bit, this meeting, we did have someone come in late that wants to address the board, so I'm going to allow her to come and speak. So we're going to go back to public comment. So Ms. Jenkins, if you want to step forward and state your name and address for the record. Okay. You have 5 minutes, and when you get to about the 4-minute mark, I will let you know. And when you get to 5, I will also let you know, okay?
Hi, my name is Karen Jenkins, and I'm here as a parent. And the reason for my concern is I'm one of those crazy people who likes to look at board policy. And in doing so, 3 years ago, I noticed a discrepancy in the way.
I'm sorry, can you state your address for the...
Oh, I'm sorry. 2710 Old Italy Road, Waxahachie, Texas. And again, 3 years ago, I noticed a differentiation in the way the grades are calculated according to board policy and the way grades are calculated according to the course registration book that students get at school. And so at the time, I had inquired with an associate principal at the high school. And to this day, I'm still waiting to hear some clarification on why they're different. And so I'm just concerned that according to board policy on January 13, 2015, in board policy on page, well, I've got one of 5, so I'm not exactly sure what this page is. But it was stated that for students who entered grades 9 prior to the 2014-15 school year, the district shall convert grades a certain way, and after that, they were to be done a different way. And so, because I have a student who's ranked number 4 in her class, and I see the discrepancy in the way they're doing it is a 97 to 100 is a 6.0. Well, the way it said they would be doing it is a student who got a 100 in a class would get a 6.0. A student who got a 99 would get a 5.9, et cetera, all the way down. And so what I'm wondering is how many students' GPAs would actually be affected if it was actually done the way the board policy said it should be done. And so if a student works really, really hard to get that 100 in a class, he or she is getting the same grade point that a student who also worked really hard to get a 97 is getting. But we can obviously see that the grade points are different. Also, I would like to include in that, I have a daughter who's in the dual credit Indian Scholars Program, and after this year, she'll be pulling out. The reason she's pulling out is, again, I've asked for 2 years about the grade conversion, and what I've been told is that when a student has a dual credit course and she or he makes an A, the grade that the district gives them on their transcript is a 95. So it doesn't matter if the student has above that, he or she's only going to get a 95. So for students who are in the top of their class, they're penalized by taking dual credit courses. When in reality, I'm an adjunct teacher and have been in Midlothian at several different high schools. And what I'm always asked to present with my grades is a numeric grade that I turn into the high school, and then I give a letter grade to Navarro. And so what I've been told is that's not possible. Well, I know it's possible because I've had to do it every year that I've been with Navarro. And so, again, in inquiring with an associate principal, what I was told is it depended on which professor the student had. If the student had a teacher who was hired through Waxahachie, that student would get the numeric grade. But if Waxahachie didn't have a teacher in that field, for example, AP Computer Science, those students could only get as high as a 95. And so I thought, well, okay, if that's the way it's going to be, okay, Katie will need to pull out, because when you're number 4, you can't afford to get a 95. It lowers your grade. What I have found in perusing Katie's transcript, she has 18 hours of dual credit courses. Instead of having, she made an A in all of her courses. Instead of having 95s in all those courses on her transcript, they range anywhere from a 94 to a 99. And so I've been told one thing, but I'm seeing another. Thus far, those grades are not computed into her GPA because they were all electives. As a junior, she will be taking core courses, and those will be computed. So what I would like to know, and what I've asked the counselors is, I don't know where to put my child, because if you're going to penalize her for being in dual credit, we'll pull out of dual credit.
1 minute.
But are all students being penalized because they're taking dual credit courses, is my question. And we have 2 different GPAs, one that appears in the student handbook and one that appears in board policy. We have students being treated differently who are dual credit versus students who are AP. And I will say, I taught AP for 25 years. I completely understand that program. For the past several years, I've been teaching dual credit. Now I've come to understand that program. They are 2 different entities, but if our board policy says the points are going to be given the same way, I think they should be given the same way. So anyway, I would just finally like an answer, because my daughter's reaching that point where those core courses are going to count for her. And she's one of these children who believes she's going to go to Harvard, and so maybe we should pull out a dual credit because we know those courses aren't accepted. I'm the realistic mother who realizes she's probably going to go to UT, and all of those courses could be taken for credit. So anyway, that's all I have to say. If you have any more questions, I have made copies of everything I found that I could share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would appreciate your consideration.
Ms. Jenkins, first of all, apologies for you ever calling us and not getting a return call for the past 2 years or any time. If that ever happens again, please let me know, because we do have a quick turnaround.
I did get to meet with people, I just never got an answer.
Well, my second apology is for you never getting an answer. We should never be asked a question that we cannot get an answer. There is an answer to both your questions, because this came up earlier, because you had called and asked a person who did bring it to me. And believe it or not, for the last 3 weeks, we have been researching this, because it did seem to be quite a mystery. And we are almost ready to present to the board, because we're trying to do the history of how in the world can we have a GPA on one system, but that's not actually what we're using. But because I'm not ready to present the board, but that doesn't mean we're not ready to explain to you, because you certainly deserve an answer now, because you are definitely trying to make good decisions for your child. So I'm going to ask Ginger Robinson, who's the lead person on sorting this out, to get with you and tell you what happened and what system is actually in place. Basically, at one point in time, we put a policy in place, and TASB called and said, the one you're talking about that's in the board policy, do not put that in. There's too many inconsistencies. But it was a transition between administration, and no one, we took it to the board. It was taken to the board, and the board said, oh yeah, the attorney said take it out, but we never sent it into policy.
Okay.
That's why the policy has changed, but yet the GPA hasn't. Now, that doesn't make it okay, but it's how it happened.
And I know I'm past time. I did read the new handbook that you are proposing tonight, and there is nothing in there about the grade point system, nor does it mention courses that can be taken through Texas Tech for correspondence credit. So I would like to ask you all to please make sure you go back through and read that handbook, because a lot of the information is missing. And it also still states in that handbook that Spanish will count in the grade determination. And I've been told that was not to be there.
Would you make certain every one of those, which are all very legitimate questions, those should not be things we're not addressing? Thank you for bringing them to our attention. And 2, make certain Ms. Robinson, when y'all meet, has all that so we can address it.
because our goal is to make that handbook such that there are no problems and parents know what their children are taking. The dual credit thing, if it's possible to do, to give a grade, why aren't we doing all those things? And by the way, we have a new advanced academics director who would be over the dual credit. We have a new secondary, oh, and there she is. Okay, I'm glad you're here. And Dr. Averett's there, who's over secondary education and curriculum. So if actually the three of y'all could meet with Ms. Robinson, because Ms. Robinson, and then again, we'll bring it to the board, because the board needs to change that policy.
Okay, thank you so much.
But I apologize, again, do not ever accept us not calling you back.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda will be Money Matters. Mr. Calden, your update on area salary compensation.
Didn't mean for it to be that long.
Good evening, Board. We talked last meeting, I guess that was 2 weeks ago, about the changes with House Bill 3 and the districts learning the new requirements for how much goes towards staff compensation and all of those various changes from the law. So I was asked to give you an update tonight on local districts around us and what their staff compensation plans are for next year. And the short of it is, I've found about 2 districts right now that know what their staff compensation plan is for next year, because they're June 30 year ends. And so they were required to have some sort of plan loosely in place by the start of their fiscal year. Most of the districts around us and most of the larger districts are still August 31 year ends. So those have not been fully fleshed out at this point. And listening to the most recent Midlothian ISD meeting, Board of Trustees meeting, it sounded like they were looking between 3.5% to 5% on the midpoint as a pay increase for their teachers. I do have a copy of their 1920 staff compensation plan, but I don't have the 1819 to do the arithmetic and figure out what that increase really is. The only other one that I have seen at this point is Frisco ISD, and they did $2,000 for teachers 0 to 4 years and $2,500 for teachers 5 and up. Like I say, at this point, you still have a lot of districts who are learning the new funding formulas and the new models, and with most of them being a 9/1 or a September 1 start and 8/31 fiscal year end, I would expect a lot of them start rolling out what those staff compensation models are going to be probably this month, so that they can get their budget postings in the papers and online and have those meetings so they can get their budgets adopted before the start of the fiscal year. So I know that's not a whole lot of info, but I wanted to give you what I could find and see what else you would like to know as we go through the budget process, so that I can bring that back to you at our next meeting in July or in August, so that we're all on the same page with the budget.
Questions?
It's kind of on topic, but I was asked to ask how our substitution rate for our rate of pay for our substitutes compares. So you might, if we could
Okay.
include that also.
I can tell you that is one thing that we do look at every single year. There are, traditionally, we have been very competitive. We have noticed some other districts around us who have added, namely Red Oak, who has added a 4th level for substitute pay. When you start looking at some of our subpay to some of their subpay, namely if you look at our teacher pay to their high school sub-teacher pay, it's not as competitive as it used to be. But we don't differentiate between high school sub and elementary sub. If you're a certified teacher and you're subbing in a certified teacher role, there's a certified teacher rate. Overall, though, within the districts, Ellis County, namely our size, we're very competitive. But I will definitely look into, again, they may have made some changes for that 1920 school year.
Anybody else?
Mr. Calden, didn't you the last meeting you gave us an amount that you thought was a minimum? Can you state
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
please?
At the last meeting, I told you I thought minimally we'd be giving all teachers at least a $2,000 pay increase. I still believe we're on target for that. I believe we may be able to do a little bit more than that. A new template was sent out from the former finance person at TEA. Working through that today, numbers still are on target with what we originally anticipated. They've gone down a little bit. As we get another round of property value information from the appraisal district, we'll be able to tighten that up a little bit more. But we still are looking at a $2,000 increase for all of our teaching staff.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. Oh, you got another one? I'm sorry.
What is our starting teacher pay right now? Or do y'all know? Do we know?
$46,290, I believe, or $46,390.
Okay. Let's try to get to an even.
That's, so one thing in the compensation plan, there will be a $10 on the back of every increase because that 90 bugs me to no end. So it will, we're going to try to make it a round number again. Yep. So,
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, next item is our project manager report for Max Simpson Elementary and our agri-science facility. Mr. Craig.
Good evening, board, administrators, and guests. I think when I started teaching, it was around 16.2 or so that I made. So, worth every cent. That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you. I'll keep my paws off of it. All right. First picture that you have there, we are doing quite well at the Max Simpson Elementary School. The picture that you see there was quite clean. If you go out there and look at that right now, you would not be able to see all of that dirt because there's a lot of material and equipment sitting there instead. We have continued, we have completed drilling piers in Area C, which includes the cafeteria and the gym area, which is on the back side of the school. All of those piers are done. They've already begun construction of forms for all of the grade beams as well in that area. So we're doing well in that. In Area D, which is the west side, kindergarten, first grade wing, that area, we're probably, as of this afternoon, 90% done on the piers on that area as well. The only reason we couldn't get them all done is because some of them are so close together, you can't drill one until you have the other one placed, or it'll cave off. So they'll finish that up probably tomorrow, barring any rain events tonight. You go ahead. They're putting in, when this picture was taken a week ago, they have made huge progress in the storm drainage system as well, making great progress along the front of the school. Go ahead. And then you just see some parts there. This is actually part of the sewer. They're getting that put in as well. It's also along the front. All of the drainage will be going towards Washington Avenue, which is to the northeast, because everything slopes, naturally that direction toward Spring Creek, towards Jacob's house over there. And as you can see, they've set some boxes there, and these are interesting. Now we've gone a long way since I was doing this. We've got storage in one end. They've got an office built in. We've got water to it. We've got electricity to it. They got an air conditioner in there. I can't believe these folks. This is, everybody says it's hot, but it's supposed to be hot in Texas. The Agricultural Project Center. We've got the green tag to go, and we have all the cattle barn concrete is in place with the exception of the tie-in in the middle. In the middle, we can't pull over 110 feet of cable in any one pull, so we had to divide those pulls into two parts. That's the reason we have the area, if you've been out there to see that is open with crisscrossing rebar in the middle. So now, after that's set up, after we've got the final pull on the post-tension concrete reinforcement, then that will get placed. Yeah. How many of you know how post-tension works? Kinda? Quick study, because this is important. We went with post-tension for a reason. The soil that we have in our area is very plastic. he's following, he's seeing it before I say it. It's very expansive, yes it is, and we had a possible vertical rise of 6 inches in this place, and that's the reason we treated the soil, so that it wouldn't rise. But even if it does, the cables will allow some movement without breaking, and that's the whole point. So we have opposing forces. We have cables in the top of the slab that have tension on them, cables in the bottom and the grade beams that have tension, and they work together to keep it straight because, you know, they've got about 35 or 40,000 pounds of tension on each cable, pulling it all together. That's what we're doing here. We got up, the first pour started at 3. The second pour on July the 2nd, I was there at about 2:15. So kind of makes for a long day. But no beauty sleep, and you know I need all that I can get. So we use a pump truck. Almost everyone uses a pump truck. In other words, concrete trucks back into that, dump into that, and then we just pump it where we need it. And so you can go ahead. If you were to go, what a beautiful morning to play in the mud, yes. But if you were to go out there right now and walk the two separate parts of the cattle barn, you would find that you would say to yourself, my goodness, I can't believe we paid good money because they didn't smooth this very well. Well, we didn't smooth it well on purpose. In fact, we broom finished it, or very, very rough broom finish, on the back part where the cattle will actually be walking, where the steers and the heifers will be. Because we don't want them to slip down when we're washing them, because we have all of the wash bays there. If you look at the front of the building, you'll find that that's a lot smoother. It's still a broom finish, but it's a lot smoother broom finish, except, you know, in areas where we'll be applying flooring, and then that's much smoother. So all of that's in place now. In fact, we will probably, if everything goes right, we will pour the back part of the swine building Thursday morning at 2 o'clock. If y'all want to come out, you are surely welcome to come out at 2 o'clock Thursday morning.
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You can just go right on through. You can see the rebar coming up out of the concrete. That's where concrete block walls will be placed. That's in order to tie those concrete blocks, or CMUs, as we call them now, in place. Tie them to the concrete. Global High, we're building a couple of walls. I just wanted to show you what's going on there. That was a band hall. Now it's a 3-room health science department, and we're in the process of getting that wired and the sprinkler system moved around so that we comply with all the city codes. Okay. Curriculum and credit union parking. Right now, there's no grass to be seen in that area. Where all that grass was now, it's all been plowed up and mixed with lime to stabilize it, and pretty soon they already started rolling that in today. And so they'll be compacting that and placing asphalt over that pretty soon. And that's it for now. Do you have questions for me?
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask, in the light of the speed at which we're doing things, that you not have to have yours, because this is kind of out of date already, you're talking about today, that in the future, every Monday, you send your pictures to the board and to Ms. Bridges to post online.
Right.
Then the Monday, we'll still have you on the agenda, the Monday of the board meetings, you just bring your presentation on a pen drive, and then we'll have the latest, and y'all will still be getting an update every week.
That would be great, as long as it's okay with Mr. Robinson.
Follow me.
Yeah, that way I can get you up to snuff.
You'll still come with the dirt on your boots.
That's right, I probably will. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is the first review of the 2019-2020 student handbook. Mr. Morgan, you doing that presentation?
Yes, he is.
You go
Was he
fishing?
kidnapped?
Did he go fishing?
Wait, 320. Let's see, hang on. Okay, well, I'll be standing in for Mr. Morgan. So let's go over the review of the student handbook. The background, actually, TASB does a lot of the work for us because at one time everyone kind of did their own thing. And
and then would go to TASB for correction. So TASB many years ago said, let us help you out, and they've given more and more structure. So they ultimately just say, here's the changes from last year. And so there's kind of an overview at the front of it that says, basically, here's what we've changed from last year, rather than you having to read the whole thing. Then at the bottom, there was, as we're looking at the end of this at each handbook, there is the section for Finley. There's the section for Shackelford. They're not in this for you to approve. This is the district part. But what we noticed was at the elementary, they said students may not walk to and from school without a parent or guardian until, well, last year said a certain day. Well, when we talked to some of the principals and to our council, if a parent, we were actually, kids, we were told we're trying to come to school, but we wouldn't let them because they're walking by themselves, and that's a violation of the compulsory attendance law, and plus we would like our children in school. I think the story was that 10 years ago something happened, so we made this rule, and there's been this rule that kids, even if the parent came, what was one of them, the parent came, but we wouldn't release the child. Remember the story, the parent got upset. Anyway, we've decided to get out of that business of parenting. We need to get back in the school business. And we're saying to parents, plus there's not always a parent to say, go to school. That some of the times the kids, they could be a fifth grader and never have to walk into a street to get to school. So we're putting that back on the parent and saying, look, when they get here, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to keep them safe. But you need to make certain if you allow them to walk to school, they know the rules and they know how to be safe. And that we're not going to not allow children to come to school because they are walking. So that was what we had. This is going to be in the new ones. So if there's any questions about the student handbook, Mr. Morgan and I will be happy to answer them.
This is the first review. Will there be a second review and then approval?
Probably at the next meet, well, probably at the workshop. We would like to get it approved as soon as possible.
Okay.
So we'll put this on the 29th.
Any other, go ahead, Ms. Craven.
Yes, I noticed under summer school.
What page are you on?
On page 89 of 110 or page 420.
89 of 110. Yes, ma'am. Okay, on
Okay.
summer school.
Okay, it indicates that we only remediate for STAR. Do we have other classes or for advancement?
Again, this is the model handbook, and I don't think this is being exclusive. I think this is saying as a minimum, we remediate for STAR in the fifth grade, because the state at one time, they were sending us the required, I mean, it was a requirement, and they were sending, so the state is saying, but this doesn't mean we can't do more.
Okay.
I know, Ms. Robinson, we had a big, I think we had it at Finley, didn't we have it at Finley? So it would be more centralized, and we're looking at different Title I monies and different things we can do. We are definitely changing our philosophy on summer school, but this is at a minimum what we're required to do.
I just wanted
We're going to check
changing our
yes, our successes and from this summer, from kind of doing it on the fly. But thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, moving along, we're going to move to item 4, which is our consent agenda. We have items A through C. As you guys know, we can take all these in one motion or individually, however the board would like to proceed. We have 3 items, A, B, and C.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C.
Been motioned by Mrs. Starnader. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Kriegel. Any discussion? Seeing none. At this time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. At this time, we will convene into closed session according to Texas Government Code, Section 551.001 et sec. It is 6:25.
They don't have the app, I said.
Did he miss that?
going to reconvene back into open session. At this time, the last item on our agenda is our HR report. Ms. James?
Good evening, Board. I would like to ask that you approve the personnel report as recommended by the superintendent. And we also have one of our administrators here, our new administrators here tonight, Ben Bridges, and he's going to Findlay Junior High.
Okay. Board, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the HR report as presented in closed session.
I move that we approve the HR report as presented in closed session.
Been moved by Mr. Schofield. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Timmerman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations, Mr. Bridges. Okay. No other business before us. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I just wanted to remind everyone in public that we have moved the July 22nd meeting to July 29th now,
Okay.
just so it's out there for the record.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Rogers, or second? Second. Second by Mr. Schofield. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you guys very much.